Okay, Monday, January 6th. Some great thing I'm going to show you today. Kamala Harris reading the votes. Like when I just heard about that, I'll show you that in a bit. It's one of my favorite things ever. So I just want to do a little bit of introduction. This video won't go up till probably Wednesday, sometime Wednesday. Maybe afternoon Wednesday, I don't know. And what it is that I just want to talk a little bit more about the channel, the shadow banning and all the things with it. When I think about any kind of venture, especially this one, the channel specifically, there's three components, right? In terms of God, me, and an audience. And I guess also a platform. So four components, right? So there has to be a platform because I might want to have my own show. I might want to have some venue for this, but you have to find a platform for your expression, right? If you want to express your views to the world, you either have to write books, back in the, when I grew up, you either had to get on some TV show. Maybe you could do some local radio, something or other, right? But you wouldn't have a national audience. And you would have to, write books. You'd have to get a publisher. In some ways, you'd have to engage with the beast. But with modern day technology and the internet and then social media, people now can express themselves in various forms, which we all know, right? And so the second, the element would be having an audience. So if you're going to express yourself in some capacity, there has to be an audience for you to express yourself to, right? If you're, when I'm talking to myself here, the only thing that makes this not crazy is an audience. Other than it would just be the ramblings of a crazy person, right? And for me, I believe for everybody, but definitely consciously for me, it's always whether my soul or God or whatever you want to consider divinity wants me to do this. Is it supported by God in some way? Is it work I'm supposed to do? Is it congruent with my soul's path and these things? So that's important. And then there's me. Like, am I willing to do it? Do I have the ability to do it? And can I make a living doing it? All the things is it a hobby? These things. The things that have to do with me and my needs and whatever I have to do to continue to do the channel, right? And so, years ago when my channel was just beginning in 2007, I started documenting my family's, um, my family's doing homesteading. Like my original videos were all homesteading videos, and sometimes I'd give some philosophy of the Sajmark system in terms of what we were doing as a family and things like that. And sometimes I'd make videos. I mean, there was a time where I made a lot of videos, like I was doing videos on like milking the cows or any number of projects, building barns and things like that. And so building an earth oven, there was like 30 short videos about that, right? Little steps to building the earth oven. And so I think I had about 1,000 subscribers, and I made $100 a month, like on average $100 a month if I made content. So even if I made a lot of videos, there was almost no money in it. In the beginning, there was no money at all. There was no monetization program for YouTube. So it was something I was doing just to enhance some of the other things that I was doing in terms of writing books and some of these things to document what we were doing. And so something significant to the channel happened in the end of 2014, the beginning of 2015. It was the time when Master Chargy, the third master of the system, had just passed away. And my family and I were traveling when we heard the news. And I made this video. So I made a video about Michelle Obama being a dude. And I thought it was kind of a joke, but I watched it anyway. And, they said that there was a husband and wife team. They're Christian. The husband used to work in the police department, some sort of forensics job. So, like, in terms of that, and that was a claim. I don't know if that was true. It gave them some credibility. So I looked into a variety of the claims, right? And some of them had some merit. Like, it wasn't as much of a slam dunk as they were saying it was. And so I said 95% chance Michelle Obama's a man. And I looked at Serena Williams, and there was this thing with Jennifer Aniston, right? And the video got like 2 million views. And it took off. And it was taking off. It was getting hundreds of thousands of views, like, in a short period of time. Just as I was, like, there was a transition happening in the Sajmark mission. This guy, Master Chargy, had sort of controlled everything, micromanaged it for obvious reasons, because we've seen what's happened since then with the debacle that is Dodgy. But, it opened up the ability to talk about this system on social media. So it was like a thing that was meant to happen, the timing of it. And from there, my channel just took off, right? I got all these, a couple follow videos that got hundreds of thousands of views. And I started to do this as a full-time job. And, there's a monetization program, and there was, all these things. And my subscriber rate was growing, and there was, movement on my channel. Now, I, wanted to do the videos. I wasn't so psyched about doing celebrity videos so much. I didn't mind doing them occasionally, but I realized I had to do them quite a bit. There's things I didn't necessarily love about it, but I knew it was something I was supposed to do. It was clear that this was like on top of me needing, a job when I was in India. This was a way to, we were in India, so it was a way to make money in a foreign country. And so, I made the videos and catered to people to some extent by the, what was the money making videos and doing the celebrity stuff, which is harder and harder for me to do over the time because it's just the videos are redundant. They don't go anywhere, and there's just no movement in them. I can make some things that are funny and mocking celebrities from time to time, but the Illuminati stuff, whatever that is, I was into that in the beginning, and now I don't think about it almost at all. And any kind of secret, secret society stuff that's there or not there, at this point, it just doesn't mean anything. Like a lot of things I cared about or was interested in have faded. And these were things that made my channel popular among dummies, people who are maybe not dummies, but, people who are, maybe they're younger or they're, they don't have the ability for abstract thought and, they're more into the pop culture stuff. So, I have a fairly regular audience. Every once in a while, a new person shows up that gets it and, sees some value in what I do here. And, in terms of the changes that have like happened to me and my view of this channel and what I do here, it's a lot more important to me, or I think it's more important than the channel is more important than I used to think it is. Because before there were so many truther channels, there were so many of these different things. I have differences, which of course, the thing I think is the most important thing is the Sajmarg meditation and talking about connecting to divinity within you, which I believe to be the solution and the only solution to the debacle that's the human race and our current beast, the system I call the beast. And so, I think that's imperative that I stay available to people. But on top of that, with the heartfulness system collapsing, and there's now, over 100 people or so who regularly do gratefulness meditation. I'm sure there's like 200 people or so that, may practice it from time to time or may want to come back to it or, are dabbling in it or whatever, right? Maybe over 1,000 people have tried it through this channel. And, gratefulness meditation is just the old Sajmarg system that I do. And keeping that alive and keeping that, present and, making it available to people, I think is a huge thing, like something that, really there's a need for it, and I'm fulfilling that need. And it wasn't such a big deal. I mean, there's a unique audience that I have of people who are potentially spiritual seekers, spiritual seekers, who are also truthers, and they wouldn't be able to find out about this through anyone else. And at least, and it would be difficult for them to hear about it from somebody else. At least they identify with me. They feel some connection with me. So, there's that element of it, right? But then there's all the other unique things that, that have gone in my life, the farming and some of the stuff, the abuse stuff. I mean, I don't talk about that so much, but I, worked with abuse and I wrote a workbook about abuse and I know a lot of things about that. And, these things that make my channel unique. Like I covered a lot of that in the beginning, with Full House and these other things, sexual abuse and the TV show Full House and some of these other things, right? And so there are things about what I present here that have some, I have some unique skill set. But the most important thing is that I believe that God wants me to do this, right? And so, I'm kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. I'm just on the lower end of the economic aspect of it. But other than that, the channel's flourishing. Because, the numbers don't concern me because I got a lot more views of people that really didn't understand the higher level stuff that I have available here. And the stuff that's on a higher vibrational level is now, to me, more important than all the rest of the stuff. I mean, it's always been more important, but it's something I want to stress more and more now that we're in the 2025s, right? Like we're in the culling period of time where there's going to be massive population reduction and, people adjusting to whatever, calamities and upheavals that are coming down the pipe. So, as far as I'm concerned, those are the things I got to focus on. Have some prepper knowledge and farming knowledge and some of these other things. I mean, there's people who know a lot more about those things than I do, but, things that I have some insights. And then, I'm dealing with the healthcare stuff on the Rumble channel. I've got a couple of videos up there that I'll be posting. They just got to make public. I put the next 2 installments there. One about the heart and then one about something else I can't remember. Well, that's about the COVID stuff that just, that Fox News was saying that WHO was demanding answers from China and some other little, bits of information about that. But I want to go back to the initial story that I was telling. My channel had been around for 7 years, and I had made videos on and off for 7 years, some extensive videos about homesteading and some of these other things. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I decided to make a video that just popped, right? It ended up getting, like I said, 2 million views, and it changed the trajectory of the channel, right? And, there might be a situation where something like that needs to happen, and I couldn't control that I didn't make it happen. Like I happen to cover something that lots of people are interested in. But if I made that same video today, YouTube would suppress it. And very few people would be interested in it because Michelle Obama is, But if I made something like it, it would be suppressed, right? It wouldn't reach as big an audience. And the other platforms don't have that kind of potential. So, but my main point here is that if something is destined, if something is backed by God, if you're being supported by God and you're doing God's work, then there'll be a pathway for that to continue. There'll be a path for that, whatever you're doing to continue because it's necessary, which I feel like this channel is. Like to the people that get it and it's for them, great. When you get comments from people like who are saying, well, I wish you would disappear or you should quit or I don't like it, like you have an option, just don't watch, right? Like, I mean, it amazes me that people you don't want my channel to exist or anybody's channel when you have a choice not to watch it, right? YouTube's not going to recommend it to you. You're not going to see it very rarely would you see it and be recommended. It barely tells you when there's notifications. So if you choose not to watch, you can forget about this channel or any other channel or any other. There's so much media out there, but there are other people that want to watch it, right? So, and in your narcissism and your whatever it is, whatever you want to call the psychological issues, you want to deprive other people of something that they want when you could just turn the channel or turn off to another platform or whatever it is, right? Like you have always the ability not to watch something. But for the people that, this is for, it needs to be available until it doesn't. And right now, I think it's a long way off, but for that, but I have to figure something out in terms of the economic issues with the channel. And, I'll be looking into that in the next couple months. I want to go and do a lot more stuff with the Gratefullness meditation. But like I said, in terms of my feeling about what I'm doing here, it's a lot more important what I'm doing here than I was initially. Like, when I first started doing this, I had different aspirations. I believe God wanted me to do it, but it was, whatever it was, right? Like I didn't have any idea of the effects it would have on people or what would, what happened with Dodgy and the heartfulness debacle and these other things, right? And as things change, then, the importance of something becomes clearer. Is it important or less important, or, is it something I could walk away from, or is it my duty to keep on doing it, right? If it's God's work that is assigned to me, then I have to see it through because it's just what you do. When you're doing something you believe that is divinely inspired, then you have to see it through. Anyways, something that's not divinely inspired is the Kamala Harris thing, so let's take a look at that. Okay, before I get into the other stuff here, a lot of it's funny. I have these great Instaghoul. The second half of the video, people start sending me great funny stuff from Instaghoul. I watched a movie last night called 99 Homes. I have these movies. I have movie channels on DirecTV, and I will tape a bunch of movies and just watch them either quickly, because I'll talk about them here if it's something to do here, or just delete them if they're not good, right? Which they often aren't. And there was two movies I had that I was just sitting there. One was called 99 Homes. There's another one. And the 99 Homes movie like captivated me from the very beginning. And there's not going to be much of a spoiler alert because the ending sucks. Like, I was disappointed in the ending. Everything else about the movie I really liked. Not just in terms of, it wasn't so much about the entertainment value because it was well done, the movie, but it was the subject matter. The other movie I watched over a series of days is a horrific movie called Nibht B1tch, which was one of the worst things I've seen. And I'll get into that at the end of the, like after everything here. But the 99 Homes was captivating. And my wife was doing extra work. So, like, I'm watching it, and she was, in the other room, and I'm talking to her about it. She watched some scenes with me that I pulled her in for. And what it's about is when the financial collapse hit in 2000, the subprime mortgage stuff. And remember, there was the foreclosure scam market in Florida. Like, Florida has so much, like, seedy shit that goes on. And I know it was a big thing there where people owned homes outright. They had homes they paid for, and they were getting evicted. And banks were taking homes the banks had nothing to do with their homes. No loans on them, no mortgages. And I know, there was articles about this, and it was just like a total scam. And these, big real estate brokers were just grabbing real estate, right? And there was all these people defaulting on their mortgages, and then there were people who owned homes, and they were getting screwed. And it was a chaos, and it was just total corruption, and it was completely fucked. And I knew that this was happening. I mean, I read articles about it, but there's a person who does the Sajmark meditation, and I knew this guy's brother a little bit. Like, his brother, I think, quit, but in the early days, he was around. He was a younger guy, one of the younger people, and he had his wife. They just got married by the, there was legal marriages you had to do, like in terms of you had to go get your, like, a legal wedding license, and then you could be married by the master of the system. And so there was these marriages that would be performed at gatherings, and they were kind of a big deal. And this guy was like a young, successful, I think, architect or something. And I met his brother at a gathering. His brother's son was killed by a fellow student who pulled out his dad's gun and was showing it off and shot his son. And he had a whole story, which was kind of interesting about that. I mean, it was tragic, obviously, but there was things about it ahead of time. Like, his son actually told him it was going to happen. Like, his son knew he was going to die. Like, it was a whole weird thing. But he said his brother had lost an investment property in Florida. Like, his brother and someone else had gone in on investment property. They owned a rental property in Florida, and they both owned like $90,000 worth. And some bank just took it, and the bank had nothing to do with their property. It was a whole thing, and they couldn't get it back. It was like these things were happening, right? And so this 99 Homes is a movie where I don't know the actor's name, but he played the negotiator in if you've seen the miniseries about Waco, and it's a two-parter. It's like a two-part miniseries. It's the Waco thing, and then it's this guy's life. He's an FBI agent post-Waco, and they're both really well done. And this guy, his name's Mike something or other, and plays this asshole realtor. He's just evicting people, and the evictions are savage. And one of the people he evicts works for him, and it's just and it's pretty indicative of everything that's wrong with the American economy and our system, and the graphic nature of this, like, sort of savage business. People taking out loans they couldn't pay. These loans all had balloon payments, right? And so that was the issue. These loans that people could pay the mortgage when they took it out, but then there was like these, it was not fixed rate, and the interest rate would go up, and like they had these, the whole thing. The economy collapsed. It was a fucking nightmare, right? And all these their mortgages, they started to fall left and right, and there was all these homes, and and this guy had gone from being a realtor to being this, scumbag realty broker, and they were just scamming the government out of shit. They're like taking these like air conditioning units and things from the property and charging the government for it. Like they're just doing all these things to like Fannie Mae and all that shit, and they're like scamming all these, these businesses associated with the government because they could, and they were, making all this money, and all these other people are suffering because of it, right? Because of the financial crisis and their bad decisions and their bad mortgages. And the people who suffered during the financial collapse, I mean, maybe some of you guys are those people. And the rest of the people who didn't suffer are, wherever they are, right? All of us who didn't suffer and, or suffered a little bit, but then there are people who lost their homes, they lost their, livelihood, whatever. Like there was just some of it. And, you don't know how bad that gets and how quickly it's going to happen here at some point when the economy collapses. I think it's pretty soon. And it's just, we saw what happened with COVID too. And, there's things that happen quickly and devolve quickly, and it sucks, and you can't do anything about it. And, it's just an absolute mess, right? It's just a fucking mess. And it's not predictable. Like people, everything that happens in America when there's a disruption in services, it's like, how could this happen? Like other places, the difference. I remember when Master Chargy was here commenting about the power outage in California. There's some power outage in California at some point, I don't know, in the 90s maybe. And there was massive riots. As soon as the power went off, it was just like chaos. All these riots and looting and shit, and it was just like chaos. And Chargy's like, the power goes out every day in India, but we're just used to it. And, it's just like the inconsistency in services. And there is some benefit to that, like living in a not first world country, because you don't take these things for granted and you learn to live without them. And there was a guy that came to our house when we had a farm in Virginia, and he used to come as a preceptor, like, and give us people sittings to my family and other families in Virginia Tech area, rural Western Virginia. And there are a number of people who did the practice, but there's no preceptors. Preceptors are these people who give these meditative sittings. So he's an Indian business guy from Washington, D.C., and he would drive 5 hours. Like, this is some of the good part. I mean, some of the wonderful service aspect. This guy, at his volunteer time, he had a job, full-time job. And every fourth weekend, he'd drive to where we were, and he would give sittings. And he would bring different people with him. And, they would stay, there was Indian families there, and they would stay with the families. But they came to visit our farm because they were living in Washington, D.C., and their farm reminded them of their life in rural India. And so it was kind of interesting. We didn't even know it, right? And so why they were coming, but he always brought somebody with him to travel with him, some Abhyasi and different people. And he said when he was a kid, they got electricity for 2 hours a day, and it was like 4 a.m. The electricity would come on. And they all would wake up, and they would do all the things they needed to do with electricity, including turn on the switch, because they had these big, giant tanks of water on the roof of their house. And then the water would be gravity fed. And so the water would be pumped up to the roof, and then, they would use the water throughout the day. And they have these big wells there, bore wells. And they turn on the well pump because, it had to be like manually turned on and whatever the thing was. And they would do all these things, and then they go back to sleep. And then they'd have no electricity till the next, middle of the night, And so, this is, people have lives like that, and, have something, but not a lot. And that's going to be in the future. People are going to have to, we're just not going to have consistent things like we have here now. Everything is going to be like, is it going to work today? We might have internet in a spotty situation, and we'll see what happens, right? But, these things are coming, and it's because the American system is so top heavy in greed and, I mean, just all of it. And Trump isn't going to make it better because he's a part of that. There's this great monologue where the guy gives, Michael Sheehan is the guy's name. And the other guy that comes work for him is the second Spider-Man, whatever that guy's, that English actor. But he gives a speech about how America doesn't support losers. America supports winners and you takers, right? So, but I was kind of transfixed by the movie. I was surprised at how good it was and how I never really heard of it. Because it was like, there was those really good movies about the economic collapse, which is The Big Short and Margin Call. And they're both excellent movies about this subject. And this movie I would put in that category. Like, they're just three great movies about the economic collapse. And, when you understand what happened, I mean, the movies are like kind of real life documentation of what happened. That we're fucked. Like, it's just, there's talks about this. And our economy is so fragile. And there's so much manipulation. I get all these alerts that Instaghoul isn't working. They need to fix Instaghoul. But anyways, so let's get into the other stuff here. On the other end, I'll talk about this other movie, Nibht B1tch, which was like a horrific movie. Okay, so we're going to embark on the Trump stuff pretty soon. So we have some remaining Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. A few little things. This might be the last thing for Kamala Harris. But this is the greatest thing ever. Kamala Harris had to read off the votes, right? She had to read off the votes between the election between her and Donald J. Trump. And so this is great, like just spectacular.
The state of the vote for the President of the United States, as delivered to the President of the Senate, is as follows. The whole number of the electors appointed to vote for President of the United States.
He's kind of a dick, Mike Johnson, but he's really loving this.
Is 538. Within that whole number, the majority is 270. The votes for President of the United States are as follows.
It's coming.
Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris.
Woo! Look at her. Look how happy he is. Woo! 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 That's a Republican side. So this is like one of the worst humiliation rituals I've ever seen, where she has to get up. If you lose and you're the vice president, Al Gore must have had to do this for George W. Bush when he beat him. But if you're the sitting vice president, you got to go up and read how you got your ass kicked by somebody else, right? Al Gore is pretty bad too because of the controversy with the election. I don't know what other sitting vice president lost. But if you're a president and you lose, you don't have to do this. But if you're a vice president and you run for president and you lose, you got to come in and read this shit, and it's brutal.
Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 226 votes.
Woo! Woo! Even some of the Republicans. So it looks like the Democrats are the ones giving her a standing O implied. Some of the Republicans are, but like for getting her ass kicked. Like she lost to Trump, which is, and the Democratic Party has collapsed, for now. Like it'll be back because, Trump will suck and everything. People will turn against Trump and they'll sabotage Trump and Trump will sabotage himself. And we have all that coming, that's in the future. But right now, the Democratic debacle is unfolding and it is absolutely spectacular. And she had to read off this thing, the ass kicking she got. I mean, she's done. I don't know if she could ever hold political office, maybe something in California. But, it's just because there's not really any opposition to the thing. She might, lose as governor as well, too, to a Democrat in a primary, but maybe even to a Republican. Occasionally they have a Republican governor there. But either way, she's done. And it was just a meteoric rise of no resistance, right? Like Kamala Harris, she serviced that guy who was in charge of the, whatever his name was. It's not as important now. He was the kingmaker or the queenmaker in California, and she was 29 and he was 61 or 60, and she got on her knees and serviced him, and so he gave her a political career and went out through the ranks in California until she won senator. And then as senator, she had accomplished nothing on her own. I mean, she knee padded it, but I mean, in terms of her political aspirations, she wrote a bogus book on some bogus programs that she did. She got her name out there. She, circulated a little bit. She had a team of people promoting her, became senator, and then ran for president and just absolutely imploded, but was picked as vice president anyway by Biden because he wanted a safety net, and he promised a woman and then a woman of color. And so that all happened. And then she, did a shitty job as vice president and was pretty, she just didn't have much of a career where people remember any sort of signature thing she did. And she got, an elderly president who went senile before he even was elected. And then she got this non-primary, candidacy that they manufactured, and then she got her ass kicked. So, it was amazing how little resistance she had until the ass kicking she received by Donald Trump, and then she just will disappear into the netherworld.
Thank you all for being here, and now who am I introducing next? Who's next?
I think I showed you this before, but somebody sent it to me. It's worth seeing it again.
Distinguished guests, the Prime Minister of the Republic of India.
He's from a small country like ours, low population.
Okay. So I don't know when that thing happened, but I know when this thing happened, it was through the last 24 hours from when this will be 48 or 72 hours from when I put this up on YouTube. But Joe Biden on Monday, January 6th, did this.
Do you still believe he's a threat to democracy?
I think what he did was a genuine threat to democracy. My being the oldest president, I know more world leaders than any one of you ever met in your whole goddamn life.
So, Bill, just to reiterate there, President Biden calling former President Trump, President-elect Donald Trump, a genuine threat to democracy. And
then he gets aggressive with the reporter. So he's going out in a bang, and then, I think he'll be dead in a couple of years. Either that, he'll be just, he'll be gone so far that people can't even communicate with him. Okay, so after having to do this January 6th thing, this is what Kamala Harris said.
Well, today was obviously a very important day, and it was about what should be the norm and what the American people should be able to take for granted, which is that one of the most important pillars of our democracy is that there will be a peaceful transfer of power.
Trying to shit on Trump, but you lost, right? I mean, you lost fucking epically. There was no way that you could have claimed that it was cheating. You had twice as much money. Your president was incumbent president. You had all these people in positions of authority in the electoral process. You couldn't have claimed you got robbed. No one would ever believe you got robbed. You couldn't even make that claim that somehow you didn't win. I mean, did she even do a concession speech? But you got your ass kicked, right, in a most epic way.
And today I did what I have done my entire career, which is take seriously the oath that I have taken many times.
Good. Let's do a little bragging about how you did such a great job at telling everyone how you got your ass kicked.
To support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which included today performing my constitutional duties to ensure that the people of America, the voters of America, will have their votes counted, that those votes matter, and that they will determine then the outcome of an election. I do believe very strongly that America's democracy is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it.
You got to fight for it. That's exactly. You got to fight for your democracy. You remember when you said when we fight, we win. And that turned out to be like kind of wrong, or you guys didn't fight.
Every single person, their willingness to fight for and respect.
You know, her hair has been disheveled like ever since she's lost the election.
The importance of our democracy. Otherwise, it is very fragile and it will not be able to withstand moments of crisis. And today, America's democracy stood.
Because of me. I did it. I accepted the fact that I got my ass kicked. I read the votes in front of everybody. I had to listen to the applause. And then, you know, accept that I got defeated by Donald J. Trump, which is unthinkable to the Democratic and liberal people, but it happened. And now I'm going to walk away into the sunset after I tell you how great I am. Boom. There she goes. Okay, so this woman is back here.
Yeah, he's been like an awesome roommate these past few weeks. I don't know. There's been a shift. And maybe it's me, maybe it's him, maybe it's God, maybe it's a little bit of everything. But I feel like we're in a way, way better place. So,
boom. I'm taking the blame.
Jesus is my rock, and that's how I roll. Welcome to another episode.
Jesus is her rock, and that's how she rolls. This is, I forget her name, but she is part of the Wilson Phillips band that had that one hit song. And she married Alec Baldwin's brother, Victor Baldwin. Whatever his name is, but it'll come up later, I'm sure. And she claims to be a Christian, which she is, whatever that is, right? And, you know, I believe that Christian celebrities is a good thing. I mean, there's so many non-Christian celebrities, so many Democratic Christian celebrities. And so, you know, have some balance. I mean, I usually would support that. And I'd still support it with her, whatever it is. The problem is she's not good at it, right? Because she's always throwing her husband under the bus. And the good thing about Christian women is they're not feminist and they don't need the validation, or they shouldn't, the good ones. Any religious woman, I shouldn't just say Christian, good godly women. Good godly women know, which every good godly person or every person who's understands the fragility of the human relationships, that you don't sell your family out. You don't say things about your family. Like if there's some kind of dispute and you're like at war or something like that, but you don't undermine your family for views or for any of these types of things, right? Like, you know, if there's a divorce situation, there is whatever it is, you know, the internet doesn't make it better. And so having a relationship with somebody and then going and whining about that person to tens of thousands of viewers on your channel is not a good way to have a godly relationship with your significant other. And godly women know more than anybody the delicacy of the relationships in the family, the sensitivity of them. And it becomes something you have to cherish and you have to, you know, uphold. And so she says she's a Christian, but she's also very, you know, new agey Republican, new agey Hollywood person, and an attention whore. Like,
Episode of California Preaching. Well, Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. I don't even want to say Merry Christmas. I am so humbug. I'm so happy Christmas.
it's pretty humbug.
And full of laughter and full of, you know, thinking about others. And one of my New Year's resolutions.
That's what she does, is she's thinking about others when she does these rants.
And I don't know, just like more playful. You know what I mean? I need more playfulness in my life. And I feel like Billy sometimes struggles with playfulness.
Exactly. Billy sucks. Fuck that guy.
It is a little bit of an allergy, but guess what?
Oh, yeah, here, let's go back here. It's Billy Baldwin. What did I say, Victor?
Retracting that comment.
Oh,
and
let's go back. Sorry, it starts right off here.
oh, you want to be married living apart? I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Wait, she's got a Jesus influencer. I have merch, CaliforniaPreaching.com. Let's start back here.
Thinking about others. And one of my New Year's resolutions, one of my holy goals this year is to have
70% of New Year's resolutions have already been, or at least 25% of them have already been let go or dropped. 70% by the end of the month.
fat, plumpy, juicy heart.
You want to have a fat, plumpy, juicy heart?
You should do that with me. Wouldn't that be a really great holy goal for 2025?
Exactly, holy goal.
Billy called me earlier and he was like, I just read another article in the Daily News about how
It's often an awesome impression. I bet he loves the impression that you do for him.
you want to be married living apart. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say at this point. I just want to clarify, please. At that time, felt like I needed a little bit of space and really...
Exactly. That's exactly what a good Christian, like batshit crazy, right? Like she's the Gwen
felt like that would be the most logical answer.
Gwen Walls.
But I have reneged. I am, retracting that comment. And I am now saying that that is probably a very foolish, very unwise, very destructive, stupid.
These Baldwins know how to pick them. I mean, at least she's from America, right? California dreaming.
Decision, because that's not going to solve our problem with the allergy. It is a little bit of an allergy, but guess what? I think
She says she's allergic to her husband.
Taking really good allergy medication, and that allergy medication is communication. It's being kind and gentle, plump and juicy heart.
Okay, so you get the idea. But what I've said before is, it's hard to listen to. The thing is that your relationships don't get better by, they're sacred, and by displaying them to the public, right? I mean, whatever they are, it needs to be kept between you and the other person. Like, if you go out and you talk shit about your significant other, you're looking for people to tell you, dump that piece of shit, right? Like, get rid of him. I mean, when women do this, they're looking for people to say, oh my God, you're right, he sucks. They're looking for validation. And then, you're on the path to having an allergy and divorcing and these other things. And so it doesn't enhance your relationship. Like, you make a decision. If you think it's a bad marriage, you can't work on it, the other person refuses to work on it. And, who knows? I mean, you should marry a Baldwin. I mean, he can't be that much different than Alec, right? And the other one, and there's Steven, whatever. They're not a great gene pool. And she doesn't look like she's some prize. So, it's lucky they made it this far. Okay, so I took a little break. This is phase 3, the introduction, and the stuff you already saw was phase 1 and 2. So this came up. He needs prayers. And the reason he needs prayers, Isaiah Thomas, is he has Bell's palsy. I'm not sure where people were seeing his face all fucked up like Justin Bieber. I have some incredible Instaghoul posts. I haven't checked my Instaghoul maybe for like 3 days or something. And some of the best posts are coming, like really funny shit coming here. But Isaiah Thomas has Bell's palsy. So I have like 6 or 7 Instaghoul posts. Somebody sent me this from Instaghoul.
Our top story tonight, a gruesome discovery inside a local courthouse. A judge dead by his own hand. WSTV's Sarah Smith outside the Effingham County Courthouse where it all happened. She's got the latest details. Sarah?
Effingham. Effingham. It's Effingham County.
Andrew, he practiced law here in this area for over 45 years, and now Judge Stephen Yeckel, according to investigators,
They got Yeckel.
was found dead inside the Effingham County Courthouse.
The Effingham.
This morning. Now, investigators say Judge Stephen Yeckel was alone at the time when it appears he shot himself in the courtroom. It either
Jesus Christ.
happened last night or earlier this morning, and one of the deputies did actually find him this morning at around 10 o'clock. Now, the sheriff says it isn't clear exactly what prompted Yeckel to take his own life, but they did discover a message that was left for Governor Brian Kemp. That note isn't being released to the public at this time, but we did confirm that Yeckel requested to resign from his position as state court judge earlier this month, but Governor Kemp denied that request.
So he's blaming him? He's blaming the governor.
Yeckle lost
The governor got Yeckle.
his re-election to Melissa Calhoun earlier this year after 2 years on the bench. His last day in office was set to be today. Sheriff McDuffie sharing his condolences for Yeckle's family.
You know, this is never good for anybody. The family's distraught. I mean, it's supposed to be a happy time this time of year, and now...
Well, it's not really usually a happy time. It could be, but it's not usually. But anyways, they got Yeckle.
ChatGPT, we're under attack from the front left and front right. Respond accordingly.
If you need any further assistance, just let me know.
Yes, can you move negative 25 degrees, then sweep across the field of fire, stopping every 5 degrees to fire 1 round? You should also have some variation in the pitch.
Firing 1 round at each 5-degree interval, with variations in pitch. If you require any further actions, feel free to let me know.
All right, so this is fucked, right? It's self-explanatory.
How many of us have regretted a big furniture purchase but thought it was too late to return it? Well, a Costco manager is dividing the internet and going viral for refusing to honor the store's return policy after a customer in Seattle decided to return a couch she no longer liked, 2.5 years after she bought it.
I said no way she can. How can she buy sofa sofa that she bought 2.5 years ago? She wants to come and return. No, she can't do that, because if it was that easy to return something, my wife would have probably returned me already after 12 years of marriage. So if my wife cannot return me that easily, she definitely cannot do the same thing. So she will take that sofa and go back.
So it's kind of funny what he's saying. Like, this guy's actually funny throughout this little piece. You know, Hoda's gone. They got rid of Hoda. Hoda. What are you going to do without Hoda? Unfortunately, it's not Costco policy. This guy's just making shit up. But, you know, people are supposed to have some sense of decency. If you've had a couch for 2.5 years, then returning it, you know, is fucked. Like, it's just not cool. Like, you know, like, people are supposed to have some, regardless of the store policy, there should be some level of just shame and embarrassment. Like, to, you know, I mean, maybe if you were like starving, your family was starving, you're looking for any way to feed them or some kind of thing, like economic collapse. I mean, then, you know, yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know what her situation is. But if you just want to get a new couch and you're abusing the store policy, well, it's kind of fucked up.
Becky Wynn says she was nervous about taking the couch back to Costco without a receipt, but the store clerk was helpful, looking up the purchase on her account in the hopes of then refunding her the full $900 she paid back in 2021. That was until the manager came along and said, "Not on my watch."
I would rather be run over. You see this truck, this tractor trailer, I would rather it run me over twice than for me to allow her to return anything.
Costco says the manager's actions goes against their policy and are investigating internally. The manager says he's standing up for everyday shoppers who bear the burden of such abuse and doesn't really care what happens to him.
I know Costco allows you to return anything whenever you want. That's fine. That's their policy. Me, I have my own personal policy. I say no, not in my store. Not in my store. So she can go to another location and do it. But she was not going to do it in my store, is what I'm saying. It be people like her that spoil a return policy for everybody else. Normal people will buy something, 30 days, they return it, 60 days even, but her. So I don't know what will happen now. We will go back and maybe I will get a call from the headquarters or something that say, why did I do that? I don't care.
You're certainly going to get a call. This Hoda's covering it, right? This is national news. So it's, you know, Costco's policy and you're going against it. So I don't think they're going to fire you because it's, you know, I think there's too many people that would agree with you. So, and he's being light about it, but fuck, you know, like, it's just, I mean, it's just the nerve of waiting 2.5 years to return your couch.
How can somebody buy something, you use it and abuse it for 2 years, 3 years almost, and you decide you want to return it. Does she think that the rest of us are we are goats or what exactly? How can she do that now? So no, somebody has to stand up for the rest of us, so because it's people like her that be increasing the price for everything. And then when normal people want to return something now, people will start giving them a hard time. Not on my watch, oh. She will take. I told her she will take that thing and go back. She can come back. And the thing is, she cannot reach. If she come back tomorrow, I'm here. I'm working the rest of the next 2 weeks. So no way for her. And I'm decided to stand. I'll camp out in front. I'll be checking ID for everybody now. That's my designation. This period.
What happened here, and how often are these things happening? Come on, Florida.
You know, this is Florida. And so Florida is a fucked up state. Now, the Florida of my youth, my grandparents lived in Florida, Boca Raton, Florida. So my entire life, they were there. I don't know when my grandparents retired there, but they were some of the early people in Boca Raton when there was like 500 people there. They lived in these old army houses. They bought an old army house and retired there. And, you know, I love Florida. And I lived there myself at various times. My parents moved down there, so I have an association with it. And every time I go back, I like it. But it's built up and it's crazy. You know, this 99 homes thing, I just covered that, you know, in the movie. You know, all those things, right? I made this stuff yesterday, but I'm commenting on it today because Instaghoul, you can't adjust the volume. So I have to take a raw video and then comment on it when I edit. Just a little FAQ for you. Instaghoul, their video player sucks so bad you can't adjust the volume. You probably noticed it because it's often loud. But sometimes it's really quiet, so you can't really, whatever. But anyways, people in Florida are feeding alligators hallucinogenics. And how much hallucinogenics, like, where is their hallucinogenic budget that they can give it to random alligators? And they have shrooms there. And so what is happening to the alligators after they're on hallucinogenics? It's kind of fucked up because you now put the alligator in danger. But it's enough of a problem, at least in this one pond, they had to make a special sign. There's a Florida sign: danger, do not feed hallucinogenics to alligators. All right, so this cobra comes in. I'm going to mute it here. This cobra comes in. The baboon goes by it. The baboon's chained here or something, some kind of captive, you know, pet or something. It's got a cobra. The thing strikes him, and I don't know if it bit him or just striked him. Sometimes snakes will strike you just to warn you. They won't want to give up their venom. But the cobra strikes the baboon, and the baboon just like, fuck it. Comes up, he's picking away, this thing. The cobra's hissing at him. He's been hissing at him. And he just like grabs it and he's like, all right, fuck it. You scratch my back with you. Put it on my head, wear you like a fucking hat. Yeah, fall off, you fuck. I don't care. Maybe I'll go into 2025 with this level if I don't give a fuck. This is just classic. So this, me heading into 2025, somebody posted this. Dude's barely making it. Can't get up. Other bitches just coming in. It's like you can't make it. You can't walk. He's too tired. Boom. He's just done. He rolls past the finish line to make it through. Cross country race. So these were excellent. Just a plethora of great stuff coming in from my Instaghoul people. Okay, so I watched this movie Nibht B1tch over, I think, 3 or 4 nights. It was on Hulu. And it starred Amy Adams, who made a wonderful movie about motherhood called Arrival, which was an excellent movie. I've seen that movie 3 or 4 times. It's emotionally moving. It has to do with extraterrestrial communication. But the movie's centered around her relationship with her daughter who has a terminal disease. And it's like just a masterpiece of a movie. And it features what I would consider a strong female character, a woman character, right? Where there's all this movement about how, you know, to make women protagonists in movies. Because what they've done is they've taken the same old movies, action movies and various movies, and replaced the male protagonist, the action adventure hero, with a female kick-ass, who beats men up and shit, right? And it just doesn't work. Like, it's just, the movies suck. And oftentimes it's a genre that men watch. So it's a movie that it's for a typical male audience, some kind of an action adventure kind of movie. Buddy films and things like this, and, whatever. And they just wreck it by trying to switch and make it a female lead just because they have to fucking wreck everything, right? And, they have women's films that are like romantic comedies and, the things that are typically cater to a female audience. And in those movies, the women are often giving feminist lectures. I mean, in all the movies. It's not just that they're substituting a woman for the man, but they have to tell you why they're doing it and why men suck, right? Like, they have to talk about women and the whole, they have to say these things, which we all know what the feminists believe. Is there anybody out there that doesn't understand the feminist point of view? And so, like anything where, like there was a wonderful movie called The Green Book, I think it's called. It's about the book that black people had to have to find the hotels that'll allow them to stay there during the 60s or whatever. And it's a masterpiece of a movie. It got nominated for an Academy Award, and I didn't really want to watch it. It wasn't like my kind of, I don't like dramas. But it was, incredibly done, right? But it was done in a subtle way because the subject matter spoke for itself, right? That, it's hard to imagine a time where there was that kind of level of prejudice based in the color of your skin. You couldn't stay at most hotels. They just wouldn't even let you stay there, right? And so, like, there was that level of segregation. And it was just the things that went along with it. But it was done in a very subtle way. It wasn't like, forcing some narrative in a very, clunky, heavy-handed type of way, right? So I don't mind if you have a point of view. Because, movies are a vehicle for storylines and things. And if you have a political point of view, if you want to put it out there in a, this kind of format, you just have to do it in a good way, like in a way that makes sense, where you're just not throwing in these characters. You're putting in a trans character just because it just has to be done, but the character doesn't really fit with the rest of the movie, right? But in Arrival, it was a protagonist female character, and it was important that the character be a female because it was a relationship with her daughter that helped her figure out that the language of the extraterrestrials was based in time. And so that, like, she had to interpret. She was an interpreter, and they were trying to communicate with these aliens that just showed up. And, like I said, it's a masterpiece of a movie. And I didn't know how much Amy Adams, the main character, had to do with it, but she did a great job in the role. And so when I saw this movie Nibht B1tch, which was about motherhood again, I was wondering if, like, it was, some good thing about mothers. That's like, it was clearly not a movie intended for me. And so it was this kind of fantastical idea. This woman, Amy Adams, who, is she's a mom who her husband travels a lot, and she's got a toddler, and she used to be an artist, and she hates being a mom. And the whining about being a mom made me sort of fast forward the thing. But I found a monologue where she was actually saying, I mean, it was like a feminist nightmare movie where there was just whining about having to take care of one kid, which my ex got really sick for a couple of years. And, and I did a lot of the work. Like, I changed almost all like 90% of the diapers for 4 kids, 5 kids actually. And, that's like a lot of unpleasant work, right? And just all of it, and all the meals I cooked and things. So I did some of the work that would be typical for a stay-at-home mom. Like, I shared in the work. And then also the stuff when my ex was sick and, for a number of years. And I wasn't suited for it, not just because I'm a dude, but because, it's hard for me to do mundane things day in and day out, right? Like, those types of things, but I just, you just had to do it and you learn to do it, right? And I didn't complain about it either because it was just, you had to do it. And so wasn't something that suited me, but, and it wasn't necessarily motherly or, there's all these characteristics that are very specific to women and mothers that it's hard for a man to replicate. But, I did like somewhat level of it, right? So like I can speak about this. And the stuff that she was complaining about is things that I did. And and I'm like, it's not that hard for one kid. Like, if you have one kid and you're a stay-at-home mom, like she was making it sound like she couldn't do her artwork because she had one toddler. And I'm like, you can, she didn't have a support system and whatever. So like the whining about it and the exaggeration of how difficult it was to be a mom. And, so she goes in and she's talking to these other moms and she talks about how the system doesn't support motherhood and that motherhood isn't valued, which I, was like, well, maybe this movie has some level of a point. So I went back and watched the other things I skipped. And I'm like, oh, it's horrible. It's just hard to get through. And the movie's so poorly made. The way that they clip things together and the timeline and the way they sort of develop the story. And she's all over the place, right? And her poor husband, who's this, he's just like this low testosterone, whatever. And they're old. Like, she's old in the thing. She might even be pregnant. I'm not even sure, like, in real life when she's made. The whole thing's weird. But she has these moments where she has, like, fantasies about saying something. It's supposed to be a comedy a little bit. There are one funny thing. There's, like, one time I laughed. There was, like, she's sitting there for reading time, and there's one of those, like, bearded dudes that's fucking singing songs to kids at a library. Like this kind of thing. And he's going to each kid saying goodbye to him, and the kid would say their name. And he goes to her kid and he says, fuck, because she sweared all the time. And so that was actually funny. But other than that, like the comedy kind of falls flat. But she's, like their attempts at jokes. And she gets this book about women and their powers and, women, and historic and mythological creatures. And she starts like fantasizing, but they make it seem real, about turning into a dog. And so she starts acting like a dog mom and feeding her kid out of a dog bowl and having him sleep in a dog bed. And she like goes out in the middle of the night and does dog things. Like she comes back and she's in the shower and her husband comes to see her. She's covered in dirt. And I'm like, dogs aren't dirty. Like she's digging holes, but, their paws get dirty. But they're not like, my dogs are digging holes all the time. They're going to come from foxes. And it's a pain in the ass because you can twist your ankle in the holes they dig. And usually when they dig a hole about something that used to be there, right? But they're, their front paws get dirty, but they're not, dogs aren't dirty, but she has this, a lot of things about the dogs. And she like kills her cat and like, it's all this weird shit that happens. Like she hates her cat, like she becomes a dog woman. And it's just like, it's not even realistic about being a dog. Like the person didn't really know what dogs are about. And, like it's it's a bad movie. Like it's like so many different ways it's bad. But and then at the end she separates from her husband because he didn't fight for her to keep doing her art when she wanted to stop doing her art. And how like miserable she is about the whole thing. And it just goes back and forth about how good it is and important to be a mom. Like there's sort of what, moms are, how powerful they are. And also like, and there's this scene where she's with her pretentious art friends in the city. And it's just like, it's like she doesn't like them, but, she misses the, they show up. She does like this really weird show at the end of the thing, where she takes back her art and takes her power and all this stuff. And then talk about power and women's power. And I'm like, it's so self-conscious, right? It's a really poorly done movie, but the message itself is, like somehow it's horrible to be a mom. Like she talks about how with this monologue she goes out, or this dialogue she's having with these women who are moms at this library. And she's talking about how they're gods because they create life, which is, a woman's ability to create a life is unique, right? To have a life with it, not create a life, but have a life nurtured inside of her, right? But then at the end of the movie, she says that the baby's first act and being born is an act of violence as it's coming out of the mother's, womb and vagina, and it's ripping her apart and all these things, right? Like it's a violent act. And, it's not the baby that's doing the act. It's the woman's body, right? It's, this is, it is definitely something that it's not a pleasant experience, right? It's a difficult thing for a woman to do, right? A physical thing. It's the pain of childbirth, right? It's a, extraordinary thing. Like, it's a whatever it is, right? And men don't experience it. Like, so it's a thing that women alone experience, but it's, the bond between the mother and the baby, to have a life inside of her, and then to have, the motherly bond that women have. Women have a mother inside of them. It's just all women have it, and they become motherly in various ways. Like when when you mature, like even women who don't have children, like there's just a mother inside of them. And men, maybe have that in a past life, and it's there somewhere in them. But men just we're not suited for. We can be nurturing, and, women have more, qualities to be healers. And there's just these things that go with being a woman. Like when you incarnate as a woman, there are some specific things that you have, right? But the issue for me is that the feminist mindset is somehow that men get a better deal. Like that's the problem. Like there's this element that men have it better. And in our society, maybe you can make a case for that. Like, I don't know. Like, whatever the better thing is, it's not about spiritual benefit, right? It's about what's called privilege, like white privilege and male privilege and things like what is considered privilege. And you could say that society gives you privileges, like whatever, like I was talking about the 99 homes thing. The poor people are getting screwed over. The rich people who've learned to, make money and take advantage of this crisis, economic crisis. This happened during the Great Depression. You have mass suffering, and then you have some people who are making bank. It's like the system is rigged for some people. Like in your system, some people are going to be better off. And in our system, it's the worst people. It's the narcissists. It's the sociopaths, people with killer instincts, selfish people, big ego people, people who can just they can get rid of their conscience and just do bad shit to take advantage of the suffering of others. That's what it is. The suffering of others becomes, the whole healthcare system. These pharmaceutical companies and healthcare providers are making bank over the suffering of other people and creating suffering to make more money. So, it's all these things, right, that exist in our society. And you could say, it's this group or that group, but it's really the sociopaths and the people who are, just bad people. And other times in society, those people are like, they just can't function in the system, in the social system. They get thrown out of the tribe, right? The predators, the pedos, the sociopaths, like the people who are selfish, they can't work in a communal type situation, right? So there's different time periods, and there's different systems, social systems and cultural systems. And right now, this system rewards for greed, and greed is good, and the people who are negative in their nature and selfish can do really well. Individualism and competition and things they can do well in, right? So that's, there is that part of it we have in our society. And, maybe it tips the scale for men. I'm sure it does to whatever extent. I used to believe in it more. But none of that shit matters, because those people are miserable. If you find the richest people, the richer the people, and the people who are born into money, whether you go to Hollywood or you just go to, rich people that are anonymous, or you go to like people in power in Washington, D.C. and in business world, they're miserable, selfish, hoarding, and their financial situation isn't making them happy. So they're not even fucking happy. And they have to pay for their mistakes in future lives, whatever it is, right? Like I said, the way that the past life system works is that you usually have life of poverty when you first incarnate as a human being. If you're coming up from the animal kingdom, or you're like a lower level. The other thing about the movie is it embraces like the animal within. Like this, it's supposed to be like she's, this night bitch. This, she's embracing this canine creature inside of her, which is, it's a de-evolution of consciousness, right? I just want to point this out for you, back to what I was saying. These women, Jane Goodall, and there's another woman that lived with the Gorillas in the Mist woman. These women who go out and men who, or this chimpanzee woman that they made a documentary about. There are people who gravitate to animals, to like they want to study animals and they're, and animals are great. Like, I wanted to be a naturalist when I was a kid, but you can de-evolve and go back into the animal kingdom. You can incarnate back in as an animal, and that's, your life is lesser than. You're going in the wrong fucking direction. Whatever you're obsessed with this life, you could be pulled back down to a lower existence. People who value animal life more than people in a sense. And, and I understand why. And, dogs are great and, they're loving and they're, much easier to deal with than humans. But, humans have evolved to a higher level of consciousness. And you want to rise up higher in that. That's the whole idea of what I talk about here, right? Rising in the higher levels of consciousness. So when people talk about privilege, it's like, well, yeah, they have what would be considered easier lives, better lives, access to better things, better houses, better food, better, just whatever it is. They have the ability to do things and buy things, but their lives are usually much worse. They're lonely. There's no love. There's just, there's emptiness. And then they have the materialism that they have to, their attachments to it, which is going to come back to bite them in future existences. So, when you think about things that way, you realize, okay, so what is the optimal way to evolve? And it's to embrace the difficulties of your life, whether it's being a mom. Like, being a mom is hard. Like, it is hard. And, like, I understand the difficulty it is because I had to, play that role to some extent a little bit, and just the mundane aspect of the thankless way. And then society demonizing, especially the feminist community, demonizing women. But this idea that having a career is somehow better. When you have a career, you do the same mundane shit with that as well, right? No matter what it is. It's just a boost to your ego. And you receive money for it, and there's some praise or whatever, or, awards or whatever bullshit they give to you. I just covered the Medal of Freedom with Joe Biden, that whole debacle, right? It was just so silly and, like, goofy. They just had the Golden Globes. But, in all that, what I'm talking about here, there are things that you just have to do when it's your situation. And whether it's hard or not, the harder it is, the more spiritually beneficial for it. It is. Like the things that are your role to play. And there's just suckiness about your life. Whether it's sitting in a traffic jam every day, whether it's that or whether it's, you got a shitty spouse or you got fucked up kids or, whatever the thing is in your life, like everyone has to deal with it. Like you see this with rich people, often famous people. Their kids are often like not right. Like they have kids that are, some sort of illness or some sort of mental issues. I mean, just these things happen like everybody. There's things that just suck about your life, like that are, that are difficult. But like if you look at it, it's something that is there, like not a mistake. And that's the problem with the victim consciousness. And like, well, society's fucked. Yeah, it is fucked. But there's always difficulties. We have things that make our lives a lot easier. And we have free time available to us in the fucked upness of our economic system. So there's benefits to it. There are things that we could be taking advantage of. It's the misuse of our free time and not focusing on a spiritual aspect of our life because of to sort of balance out the hyper materialism. And so, this idea that somehow you're a victim of your circumstances, right? Like everybody can read the ingredients, right? You can, if you are not happy with the way that the system is viewing you as a mom and the way that you're supposed to act as a mom, like because of the feminist agenda and all of it, and the societal, worth making the position of the mom, just a mom. I've covered that in various videos. You can become a mom truther. Like you can realize what the real value of being a mother is, and be a more natural mom. Just figure that out, right? Just like with the healthcare system, you're not a victim of these things. Like, you don't have to do the system. You can go outside the system, and there's other systems out there. They're not great. It's what I'm talking about in my, my other videos on my, that Rumble thing. The healthcare stuff. You can learn to go outside the system. Like, we have access to information now because of the internet. I mean, there's so much information, and there's so much stuff out there, like, to learn about. And, it's kind of interesting to learn about things, right? To evolve your knowledge base. And there's lots of information, great people out there who have cracked the code outside the system. And there was just all this level of, trutherisms around there. And so there's no reason to whine about it like you're a victim and you can't do anything about it. Because if you don't like the way you're playing this role, then you can, figure out a better way. Like, you can, there's some kind of way to evolve through it. Anyways, so let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.